Robert Frost's poem, October, is a poem about the tensions that can come from the changing of the seasons from fall to winter. Frost uses iambic tetrameter to get this point across. Throughout the poem, the main tension is displayed through several metaphors that can be shown in early on in the poem, then transformed throughout the poem. We know that the tension in the poem is the fall turning into the winter because of his several mentions of it. For example, in the first line he says, "Oh, hushed October morning mild, that leaves have ripened to the fall." He brings up the point that the leaves have ripened and that they are in their form and about to go, he says on line 6. In this scene, the speaker is around the forest, but also can see the crows flying above the forest. The entire scene is characterized as a typical fall scene. He says later, "Begin the hours of this day slow, make the day seem to us less brief." This mention towards making the day seem to us less brief is trying to play on the fact that the speaker wants to have a longer day and enjoy the October day more. Further adding to the tension that the speaker doesn't want the fall to turn into the winter. Make the day seem to us less brief. Heart's not averse to being beguiled. Beguile us in the way you know. Release one leaf at break of day. At noon, release another leaf. It's almost like the speaker is pleading to the fall, an inanimate personified object or season, to go slower and move slower in his attempts to slow down the transition of the seasons. By doing this, it is almost comical because this is not a possible thing. Frost creates the tension between two things that inevitably we know that the fall will turn into the winter, but it's still the last-ditch efforts by this speaker to get the gentle mist and to prevent that from turning into the frost. The leaves already are burnt with frost on line 19. Again, the scene is beautiful and lovely, as in much of Frost poetry. The feeling is embracing the future cold, but also recognizing the beauty of the current moment. The frost and the golden leaves all add to the hushed October morning mild that Frost mentions on line 1 and 7. The main character in the poem is arguably nature and the speaker, but the speaker is mainly using nature as almost the conversation with him. So he's having a pleading conversation with nature to try to plead nature into slowing down its transition. Emotion in the fall scene is spoken to us through the crows above the forest calling on line 6, the wind on line 2, at noon, and we know that all of these add to the setting, which is noon in a forest in October, but it's turning into winter. The words I mentioned are arranged in iambic tetrameter. This adds to the momentary pause that is frequent throughout most of Frost poetry, but specifically in this one. The pause here is that the speaker wants to recognize that the hushed October morning mild is so beautiful, and the tension is, again, him trying to plead with the fall to not turn into a winter, to hold on to its leaves and capture more of the day, and tomorrow they may form and go on line 6, but for now the speaker wants to hold the fall and keep it for themselves. And this theme is common among lots of Frost poetry. For example, the idea in the poem is that the seasons do eventually transform into winter. The fall will eventually go into winter, but he wants to. The speaker wants to pause that and to pause that transition. Also, this goes along with a quote. Frost said, "In 3 words that can sum up everything I've learned about life, it goes on." Although this is slightly comical and joking, it does have some pertinence to this poem. He says, it goes on, and although this wasn't in reference to his poem, this is a common theme among his poetry. It goes on, it is true. The seasons will go on and transform into another. The poem's metamorphosis from the frost of the winter, or from the late burnt leaves of fall to the frost of winter, is the action in the poem. And the actions added to that, the action has supplementary other actions, including crows are flying above the forest in line 5. Also, the leaves, at noon, release another leaf. These are action words. Release. Make the day seem, begin, hushed. All of these are words that show, and clustered, enchant. All of these are almost like action words to tell and exclaim to the fall to slow down, to stop its transformation. And finally, again, the action in the poem is for fall to slow down, and for the speaker to enjoy more fully the hushed October morning mild, instead of having the for the grape's sake to go into the winter. And as line 21 should be referenced, for the grape's sake along the wall, he's again, the speaker's pleading for the grape's sake, could you please pause the transformation, which is another plead and desperate attempt to not change into winter.